educated surgeon, and they both are on just a quest to fix the food supply. So I want to get through. We had 300 questions. We had condensed these down into 23. There were a lot of questions that that overlapped, and so I wanted to make sure that I got to the most pressing questions first, and then obviously we'll open it up to a Q&A with you guys. But just so you guys know, we had a very, very long meeting over the weekend about how we can enhance the value in the rural BRCA's environment. So stay tuned. We're going to make our promises aligned with what we're delivering. We're going to give a lot more exposure and direct access to me. We're going to do special things like push value back into the rural BRCA's. We want, instead of me doing philanthropic efforts outside of my own community, I'm going to start to do a lot more philanthropic efforts inside of the community. I really believe that that's the way that we can really build value, not just in the rural BRCA's, but in the community itself. So stay tuned. Over the next few weeks, you're going to see a lot of very positive changes, and my intention is to overwhelm you with value without the expectation of receipt. And so this might mean that we can pipe you into live podcasts. We can have Q&As like the one we're having now with other really impactful guests. I know last a few weeks ago, we did one with Dr. B, Will B, the gastroenterologist, and people really like that. We've done them with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. We've done them with Dr. Minkoff. I want to do a lot more on women's health. So we're going to start bringing really, really highly qualified world leaders in their respective areas of medical practice into this room so that you guys can have direct access to them. Okay, so there were originally 300 questions. They're down to 23. I'm just going to rip through some of these. I'm sure a lot of these were actually submitted from you guys that are on the call. So I'll just go through them one at a time. The question was, it's that time of year again. What are your thoughts on flu shots and how to speak to family members about it? So here's my thoughts on flu shots and immunosupportive therapies just in general. If we have a healthy, robust immune system, we shouldn't need these external interventions. If you actually look at the real data that came out of the pandemic, and again, I know this is controversial, but if you look at the real data that came out of the pandemic, you'll find that natural immunity exceeded the vaccinated and boosted immunity. So what that means is that you have a broader response to a natural infection than you do to an inoculated infection. We used to actually make vaccines out of attenuated viruses. Now we make some out of messenger RNA. I think anytime you put synthetic messages from the DNA, synthetic messenger RNA into the body, we really don't know what the downstream consequences are. I'm not even qualified to speak on that, and I've dedicated the balance of my adult lifetime to the study of epigenetics. So I'm not a really big fan of flu shots. Once a year, usually the whole family gets sick right around back to school time, and you don't get sick again. It's interesting to think that if a flu vaccination truly created a vaccinated response where you actually didn't come down with the infection and you didn't spread the infection, which by the way is the definition of a vaccine. Can we just level set that? If you are properly vaccinated and you meet the definition of having received a vaccine, you do not catch that condition, nor do you spread that condition. So the fact that you can actually, if you get the polio vaccine, you don't come down with polio, nor do you spread polio. So if you can still contract the virus and spread the virus, that's really not even the definition of a vaccine. It's interesting to me that we have to get flu vaccinated every year. Why is that? The flu's not mutating. It's that immunity is waning. And so this is why you still have to get vaccinated every year. We have about 67,000 people a year die of influenza. These tend to be severely immunocompromised individuals. I would rather see you boost your vitamin C intake, make sure that you're taking vitamin D3 with K2, make sure you're taking a methylated multivitamin, staying plenty hydrated, and then you will be significantly less susceptible to those types of infections. And if you add deep sleep to that, really focusing on your sleep, which is when your body repairs and regenerates, when most of our hormones are released, when our cortisol levels are determined, I mean, now you've just got an unstoppable immune system. Postmenopausal women's cortisol and fasting. There's a Dr. Stacy Sims that says that postmenopausal women should not fast because of increased cortisol levels. Or is it more about hemoglobin A1C? This is very true. So younger women, women that are, especially if you're still menstruating, listen up. Some of the worst endocrine disasters that we've seen in our patient population are women with a very narrow feeding window. And why is this? Remember that the pituitary right up here, and if you put your finger straight into your forehead and right into your temple, where they would touch would be your pituitary gland. That's the master puppeteer, right? Pituitary's running the show. Men, it's regulating your testosterone levels. Women, it's regulating your hormone cycles, follicular, ovulation, luteal. It also is regulating your thyroid, your metabolism, your metabolic rate. It regulates your body temperature. And so the pituitary is the master puppeteer because it also regulates your hormonal system, and it also regulates your thyroid. When the pituitary perceives prolonged periods of very low blood sugar, a prolonged hypoglycemic state, as starvation. And what does it do? It throttles back your metabolism. Now, the pituitary throttles back your metabolism by affecting the production of T3 and T4 hormones from the thyroid. It does this through a signaling hormone called thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. So your thyroid doesn't determine how much thyroid hormone it produces, the pituitary does. Right? It's the volume knob. So if that volume knob is regulating your menstrual cycle, regulating your hormonal cycle, and regulating, I'm speaking specifically to women right now, and regulating your thyroid, and you go into a prolonged period of hypoglycemic state, low blood sugar, what happens is as it throttles back your metabolism, it can send your hormones into a tailspin. Women benefit more, especially younger menstruating women, benefit more from lower caloric intakes spread out through a longer period of time. So if you're really concentrating on losing weight, then actually reduce the total amount of calories you intake, but keeping a very, very narrow feeding window in most cases is an endocrine disaster. Effective use of red light therapy panels, time of day, how long, how many days a week, what conditions will impact it? Example, will it work for avoiding hair loss? And what light panel brands do you recommend? So red light therapy sort of runs the gamut. Just a quick, super fast lesson on light. There's a broad spectrum of light, right? You start with X-ray. X-rays are light, right? These are damaging, but X-rays, right? And then you have ultraviolet, UVA and UVB. These are the light spectrums that actually damage your skin, right? From the sun. This is what sunscreen tries to prevent, is UVA and UVB rays. And then beyond UVA and UVB rays, you have a very, very, very narrow sliver of light. This is the visible spectrum of light. This is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Those are the visible spectrums of light. Those nanometer wavelengths, roughly 400 to a little less than 800 nanometers, are visible wavelengths of light. So when you say red light, you are referring to the visible form of red light. This is a very superficial form of light. This superficial form of light can be powered by a battery, some of these face masks that you use. It's good for the surface of the skin. It doesn't penetrate very deeply into the skin. It can reduce inflammation. It can improve collagen, elastin, and fibrin, which is why red light therapy is so good for the face. As you move out of the visible spectrum, you get into near infrared and infrared. Now, as you get way into infrared, you start getting into infrared sauna. I'm not talking about infrared sauna wavelengths. I'm talking about infrared light wavelengths below 1100 nanometers. When those wavelengths of light pass through the body, they improve vasomotor circulation, right? Remember the snake swallowing a mouse? This is how most blood is circulated around our veins. 70% of our circulatory system is not done by the heart. It's done by vasomotor activity. So if we want to improve vasomotor activity, red light therapy is excellent for that, which is why you see so many people that use red light therapy devices report not wearing readers anymore. They report better skin, the tone and texture of their skin, reduced fine lines and wrinkles. All of these are evidence-backed outcomes from red light therapy. You also see a dramatic reduction in inflammation throughout the body. You also see a dramatic improvement in the mitochondrial function. Why? Because the mitochondria functions best when it has oxygen. Certain wavelengths of light will pass through the skin, kick out a gas called mitochondrial nitric oxide, and force oxygen to dock inside the mitochondria. When oxygen goes into mitochondria, you have a 16 to 19-fold increase in cellular energy. So red light therapy is good for collagen, elastin, and fibrin. It is good for inflammation, reducing it. It is good for circulation, improving it. Like I say, a lot of people, if you watch the Joe Rogan episode that I was on, he actually bought one of the light beds while I was on the show, and 5 weeks later he texted me and told me he wasn't wearing readers any longer. So it has a pretty significant impact. I like the Theralite 360 as a light bed. It's a very expensive bed. I don't think that you need to make that kind of investment. The light panels that you can find on my website, either is it on theultimatehuman.com or 10xhealthsystem.com, or even if you go to 10xhealthtest.com, I have the light panels on there, significantly less expensive than a red light therapy bed, and it has the same power as the bed. These light panels will go from the top of your skull until just below your crotch, like the middle of your thigh, plenty to saturate the majority of the organs in the body with high intensity red light. So you can get away with panels. You don't need to invest in a full red light bed. Effective use. Hyperbaric versus EWOT for oxygen saturation and brain health. Time of day, how long, how many days a week can you overdo it with oxygen? The answer is yes, you can overdo it with oxygen. You don't want to create an oxygen dependency, which is why exercise with oxygen therapy. So let's compare exercise with oxygen therapy, or EWOT, what they call multi-step oxygen therapy, with hyperbarics. I have them both here. Hyperbaric is using pressure to take oxygen and other gases and drive them into tissues that otherwise might not be getting enough oxygen. Hyperbarics are generally better for acute or chronic conditions, kidney issues, liver, lung, brain issues, things like early onset dementia, cognitive decline, recovering from a concussion or traumatic brain injury, any kind of surgical recovery. Hyperbarics are by far the best choice. Any kind of cognitive issue, hyperbarics are by far the best choice. If you have kidney issues like early stage kidney failure, or low filtration rates in your kidney, or low filtration rates in your liver, hyperbarics the way to go. The EWOT, exercise with oxygen therapy, takes a fraction of the time. A normal hyperbaric session is about 90 minutes. A normal EWOT session is about 12 minutes. The idea with EWOT, exercise with oxygen therapy, is to slightly elevate your heart rate. So you're either walking on a treadmill or cycling on a stationary bike. To be hyper specific, here's the protocol. I don't know who asked the question, but get out a pen. So the therapy, the protocol for EWOT is first thing in the morning, either before or after your initial workout. If you go to Michael Chandler's Facebook, Instagram page, you'll see that he uses our EWOT system. He's preparing for the Conor McGregor fight. He's one of the best UFC fighters in the world. So you get on a bike, you put the mask on, the bladder is full of 900 liters of 93% O2, and you cycle at an average pace for 3 minutes, and then you go all out for 30 seconds. Cycle for 3 minutes, all out for 30 seconds. Cycle for 3 minutes, all out for 30 seconds. So that takes 11 and a half minutes, 3 minutes, followed by 30 seconds, followed by 3 minutes, 30 seconds, 3 minutes, 30 seconds. So 3 rounds of 3 minutes of exercise with a 30-second intense split. Both of these will raise the oxygen saturation in the blood. One is actually much better for perfusing the body with oxygen in a short period of time, does not create a dependency. You can do it every single day. The other is much better for acute and chronic injuries, or recovering from surgery. So low testosterone in men and related supplementation, i.e., how do we elevate free T naturally without chopping wood? Thoughts on injections versus new oral medications, like undecanate. So here are my thoughts on male, and for that matter, female hormone therapy. A male or female hormone therapy panel should not just include the hormones, right? Total testosterone, free testosterone. It should also include things, and this is very important, like luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. The reason for this is very often in men and women, our hormones decline because the signal to that organ has declined. So in other words, Men, for example, they get into their mid 40s. Sometimes we'll see a precipitous drop in testosterone. This does not mean that they've lost the capacity to produce healthy levels of testosterone. It means that the volume knob has been turned down, right? It's just like speakers in your house. They don't determine how loud they play. The tuner does. So if you walk into a room and you can't hear the music, you don't mess with the speakers. You go find the tuner and you turn the tuner up, right, to raise the volume. This is the same thing that happens with luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. These are the signals that leave the pituitary, men and women. In men, they go to the testicles. In women, they go to other parts of the endocrine system. And these hormones, in a woman, will move them through their menstrual cycle. In a male, it will raise their testosterone level, also raise their sperm count. Follicle stimulating hormone stimulates follicular cells, which produce testosterone, or produce sperm, and luteinizing hormone stimulates luteal cells that produce testosterone. So number one, get a full panel. Make sure that your signals are not low. If your signals are low, mimic the signal. You can do this through ganadorelin. You can do this through Premarin. You can do this by taking something called enclomiphene. All of these things will raise the signal to those organs to naturally raise the hormone level. And then the other thing you want to do is see if there's anything interrupting your natural hormone level. One is a deficiency in DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone. DHEA, which you can get over the counter, is the precursor for hormones. So very often, if you're just low in the raw material to make the hormone, your body can't make the hormone. Well, you don't have an endocrine issue. You don't have a hormone issue. You don't even have low testosterone. You have low raw materials needed to make testosterone. So I would also look at your DHEA level. And then finally, I would look for a suspicious little protein that's in everybody's blood called SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. It does exactly what its name sounds like. It is a protein that binds to sex hormones mainly being testosterone. Men and women both have SHBG. And in fact, the majority of birth control used to control a woman's menstrual cycle is SHBG. They purposely add this to the bloodstream to shut down the menstrual cycle. You can add, when this protein rises, and it's very easy to check on a blood test, it will stop the conversion of testosterone into free testosterone. So very often men have suppressed levels of testosterone because they have this high protein in the blood. It's very easy to lower this protein with a mineral called boron. Once you lower the protein, the testosterone levels rise. So just a quick 10-second recap. You want to check the signals too, from the pituitary to your endocrine system, LH and FSH. You want to check DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone, and also SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. So any tips for managing rheumatoid factor, asthma, eczema, and inflammation? Yes. I'm about to change your life. It's a little bit of an investment, but certainly drinking hydrogen water. There's a very interesting study on hydrogenstudies.com about high part per million hydrogen water and rheumatoid factor. I will try to put this into the show notes if my team reminds me. I'll pull that study for you. Also, bathing in hydrogen gas. There is a hydrogen gas generator that is on my website. It creates very high parts per million hydrogen. I've personally never seen anything address skin-related issues like eczema, psoriasis, scleroderma, or anything have such a positive impact on joint pain and inflammation as I have bathing in hydrogen gas. I don't know of any downside to bathing in hydrogen gas. At one time, I was going to spend $110,000 on this massive electrolysis unit. They were going to rip the tubs out in my bathroom, replumb the whole thing, just so that I could hydrogenate and oxygenate the water. And I found a machine that's about $7,000. Realize that's very expensive, but so is living in chronic pain. And this machine just takes the water out of the tub, puts it back in as high concentration hydrogen gas, and you bathe in the hydrogen gas for about 20 minutes. Absolute game changer for you. If you don't believe me, look up hydrogen bathing and arthritis or hydrogen bathing and inflammation. You're going to be shocked by what you read. And this machine just makes hydrogen, high part per million hydrogen water over and over and over again, kind of like the little Echo water bottle. Managing HSV2, herpes simplex virus 2, and AIDS, which is autoimmune deficiency syndrome. Again, I just need to restate that I am not a physician, so I'm not licensed to practice medicine. So please don't take this as medical advice. But there are lots and lots and lots of statistics about autoimmune deficiencies that can be supported by then strengthening the immune system. There's an amazing peptide called thymulin or thymosin alpha. These are peptides that you can get. You can get them through our physicians at 10x Health. If you're a patient of 10x Health, then our doctors are very comfortable prescribing these. You also want to make sure that you look at other viral pathogens. So both AIDS and herpes simplex have a tendency, well, herpes specifically has a tendency to flare. What this means is the virus is hiding in what's called the dorsal root ganglion, and then the viral load rises, and now you have an active infection. Then it goes dormant, and then it goes active. How can we actually keep these viruses in dormancy? Most of you that are watching this right now have Epstein-Barr virus in your body right now that's just dormant. Why? Because you had mono when you were a child, and it comes back as Epstein-Barr as an adult. Or you had chickenpox as a child, which comes back as shingles as an adult. So how do we keep these viral loads low? How do we keep the expression of some of these diseases low? Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, antivirals, staying on an antiviral protocol, which is an immune boosting protocol, high doses of vitamin C, 2 to 3 times a day. Ozone therapy is also very, very good, both transdermally through the skin and also through IVs. That would be my suggestion there. Also, I think that you should look into methylene blue. Look at methylene blue and viral pathogens. If you actually take methylene blue and then get into a red light bed, it puts the methylene blue on steroids. So any insight on multiple sclerosis and its root causes? You know, there's some interesting research out on multiple sclerosis. Again, I'm not a physician, so I don't want to give medical advice, but there is tremendous body of evidence growing that multiple sclerosis is a viral infection that leads to an autoimmune condition. Remember that my whole philosophy on autoimmune conditions and a lot of these chronic disease states is that they are not something that's happened to us. We didn't contract them, right? They happened within us. And whatever happened within us to change and cause the metabolic shift in our cells so that they then become sclerosis, which is like an open sore. Think of a nerve as a copper wire inside of a rubber sheath. That rubber sheath is called myelin. The copper wire is the nerve. If I actually take chunks out of that rubber sheath, everywhere that copper wire is exposed, it arcs. When you get multiple sores along the rubber sheath, this is called multiple sclerosis. The scleroses are in the myelin sheath. So what can we do to restore healthy myelin? Reduce inflammation, look for viral pathogens. So do a very thorough viral panel. Maybe it's Epstein-Barr, West Nile, cytomegalovirus, even low-level Guillain-Barré. So a lot of times these very serious chronic conditions, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, these have viral origins. I think it's one of the most overlooked things in all of modern medicine, personally, is that we don't actually check for pathogens that could cause these outcomes. If you do find somebody in your area that does ozone therapy, either intravenously or transdermally, get on a good 8-week antiviral protocol, and then take antivirals prophylactically. Can you deal with hypothyroidism without medication? Nothing improves my TT levels. So I'm taking Omra. So Omra is colostrum, which is good. If you haven't heard or taken a thyroid support with selenium, thiamine, those are excellent for your thyroid. You may also want to get your iodine level checked because very often deficiencies in iodine can also negatively affect the thyroid. Remember, the T3 hormone is actually 80% of it is produced in 3 places outside of the thyroid. The main place that it is deiodinized is in the liver. That's the majority of your thyroid T3 hormone production. The second place is in the gut, and the third place is in the periphery. So those are the 3 areas where T4 is converted into T3: selenium, thiamine, magnesium. And if you are deficient, iodine can be really, really, really good sources for people that have hypothyroid. Thoughts on weightlifting frequency, X3 bar, biohacking tips for joint and muscle injury recovery, and mitigating post-weightlifting fatigue and muscle pain. So here's my thoughts on weightlifting. First of all, I'm a huge fan of weightlifting. I think that muscle is our metabolic currency. I think that the impact that muscle has on longevity is very underrated. The science is actually starting to prove grip strength, for example, is directly related to longevity. I talked about it on the podcast today, how astounded I was years ago when I owned a CrossFit gym, and we would bring these children in from the local public schools in 6th grade. These kids couldn't dead hang for more than 10 seconds, meaning just hang from a bar for more than 10 seconds. And they couldn't actually get up from a seated box jump. We had these box jumps that were 12 inches high. And we would just tell these kids, 6th graders, sit on the box jump and just hold your hands like this and stand up. You would be astounded how many 6th graders cannot stand up from a seated box jump position. It just absolutely blew my mind. So I'm a huge fan of weightlifting. I also think that any kind of compound lifts where you're putting heavy weights over your head, where you're actually weighting your spine, like a squat, or where you're holding yourself in a non-anatomical position, gripping a barbell and trying to do curls versus curling with dumbbells that allow some flexible motion. Also, one of the cardinal mistakes is people don't put their muscles through the full range of motion. Just exercise our biceps from here to here. But look, the bicep, actually, I could show you. Oh, I got some guns. See, the biceps main action, one of the biceps main action is to actually turn the hand. So see how the bicep is contracting? So if I just exercise it like this, right, and I'm not actually turning the weight during that motion, I'm not putting the muscle through its full range of motion. So weightlifting, you want to do weights a minimum of 3 times a week. The more often, the better. My preference is, if you're limited on time and you don't have time to do cardio and weights, do weights, because weights can actually also increase your cardiovascular conditioning. Cardiovascular conditioning will not increase your strength. So you can get stronger and more cardiovascularly conditioned if you just did weight training. If you guys get online and start banging around, I mean, you can make yourself cry with body weight exercises. I mean, a good trainer can teach you how to just take your own body weight and put it through certain positions, like yoga positions, that are really, really good for putting high stress on the body. X3 bar is Dr. Jaquish is a friend of mine. I've had him on the podcast before. I'm a big believer in what he calls progressive resistance. Progressive resistance is based on the principle that we are stronger as our fulcrums get either closer to or further away from us. So for example, like a bench press, I might only be able to bench press 185 pounds from here to here. But from here to here, I can bench press 225 pounds. And from here to here, I can bench 300 pounds. So progressive resistance increases the weight as we strengthen and are pushing things away from the body or bringing them closer to the body. And so bands like the X3 bar, or there's a machine that I'm toying with right now called AMP, A-M-P. It's a wall-mounted machine. You can exercise every body part in the body. It has a simple cabling system on it. But it works on the theory of progressive resistance, which means increasing the amount of weight in the strongest range of your motion. So theoretically, if you've ever seen people bench press with bands on the side of the bench press or chains, so that as they get lower and lower and lower, the chains pile up on the floor and decrease the weight. As they get further away, the chains come up off the floor and actually create more drag. That is the Olympic lifters in Russia have studied this and proven this principle over and over again. The progressive resistance is much better than static resistance. What's the safest way to transition off birth control and balance hormones. Our clinic director is a board certified OBGYN. So transitioning off birth control is about titrating off of birth control, depending on how long you've been on it. I've seen Dr. Sarda safely take women off of birth control all the time so that they can then get pregnant. Depending on what kind of birth control you're on, the titration period may take a little bit longer. Most women are on SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin birth control. You can actually stop taking that birth control. Your SHBG will be elevated for a period of time, and you can use the mineral boron to help clear that from your system faster. What causes sweat to smell like ammonia? Is this indicative of some disease? What supplements can help to take that? This one's actually a little out of my zip code. I am aware that sometimes sweat can smell very sour. If that's what you're referring to. And the sour smell usually indicates a topical skin yeast infection. Very often we have fungal yeast infections on the surface of our skin when we sweat. And the water is evaporating, you can actually smell the fungus or the yeast. I am not aware of one that makes you smell like ammonia, and I'm not sure specifically what would cause that. But if you're referring to the ammonia smell as more of a yeasty kind of sour smell, there is a topical skin infection. If you want to write this down, it's called tinea versicolor. Very common. You can get a shampoo called Nizoral or a shampoo called Selsun Blue. Make sure it has 1% ketoconazole. I know that's a mouthful. Keto, like keto diet. Conazole, CONOZOL. 1% ketoconazole, COLE. And this will usually wipe out topical yeast and fungal infections. Just get a loofah, soap it up, and really rub your skin with it really well. And usually that'll get rid of topical yeast infections. If there's anybody on here that does jujitsu or wrestling, you spend a lot of time on those mats and you sweat, your skin comes in contact with the sweat. Tinea versicolor is a very common topical yeast and fungal infection that a lot of these folks get, and that Selsun Blue or Nizoral will help take it away. What's your take on the carnivore diet, specifically the studies about red meat and colon cancer? Do we still need fiber? Yes. So if you look at the studies on red meat and colon cancer, you see three fallacies in those studies. Number one, these are highly processed meats. I'm not a big fan of highly processed meat. I'm a big fan of grass-fed, grass-finished meats. Secondly, you see that most of these are overcooked. So these meats are actually cooked at very high temperatures, and they're done well done or extra well done. Well done or extra well done meats are not good for you. Burned meats are not good for you. But rare, medium rare, even medium to medium rare plus, that is the way that steak should be cooked. It's the most nutritious way to eat the steak. If you have grass-fed, grass-finished steak, you're going to lower the omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acid ratio. That's the ratio that's out of balance in commercially raised beef. I actually do eat a lot of meat. I also eat a lot of organ meats. If you see my What's in Gary's Kitchen, very often I will have free-range chickens, pasture-raised eggs, wild-caught salmon, grass-fed, grass-finished meats. I've got a 0 calcium score. I also have no blockages in my heart. The majority of my cardiac markers, with the exception of lipo(a), are very low. So I am a fan, not necessarily of a carnivore diet, but a whole food diet that can include meats. Carnivore is a good elimination diet for a short period of time for people that have topical skin issues, gut issues, autoimmune issues. For a period of time, what we call a carnivore reset or keto reset, those diets can be effective. I don't think that just simply eating beef or just simply eating meat long-term is a really good solution. I also think the most important thing that you can do is use fermented vegetables in your diet. Yes, we need fiber. Fiber is so important to human health, not just the bulk fiber that helps move through your intestines in bulk, but the soluble fiber that turns into something called short chain fatty acids. Short chain fatty acids are miracle molecules in the body. They actually reduce inflammation, they improve circulation, they can even repair endothelial damage to the lining of your arteries. So healthy diets can certainly include meat. It's the source of the meat. We're not what we eat, we're what we eat eats. If you can mix in fermented vegetables. We have 20 minutes left. Okay, so let's take some questions now. Oh, live questions. Sorry, that's what I meant. And then I want to get to the autism and ADHD question because that's a big one. A mom wrote in about autism and ADHD in children. Hey, man.
Hey, good morning, Gary.
How are you?
Good. Back in Honolulu on another layover down at Studio 7 here doing my biohacking. I just
I love it.
walked out
Yeah,
of the
you were
sauna
getting ready to go there last
yeah,
time.
yeah, and I just did the red light therapy. So while you were explaining the red light therapy, I was literally in it. So thank you for that. And I'm about to do the
That made you feel good.
yeah, I'm about to do the cold plunge here in a minute. Once I kind of cool down, and even got the owner of the place to join on the call today too. So he's here. So
That's great.
Austin,
Tell him
Austin,
I
yeah.
said
So
hello.
well, he's on here, so hopefully you can talk to him. So just trying to
Okay.
spread your word. But okay, I got a wicked smart daughter, and I've been having a discussion with her about. So when I'm in on these layovers, walking around with the AirPods, what you see one thing, it says, hey, it's not good for you, you're getting zapped with stuff, and then you hear somebody else that says, no, it's okay because of the wavelength of this or that. So
Hmm.
AirPods and Bluetooth, what say you?
So there's two communication signals coming out of those. One is communicating with the phone, which is not the dangerous signal, which is usually the signal that's referred to by people that think that EMF waves, they're trying to debunk the risks of electromagnetic fields. The other is the communication between them, right? And the only way for something in your right ear to talk to something in your left ear is to communicate through your brain. Those are the wavelengths that are very damaging and very risky. And when I say that, what I mean is these are in constant communication. There are iPods now that you can be 300 feet away from your phone. If you're 300 feet away from your phone and this ear pod is still able to maintain contact with that signal, that is a very, very powerful frequency. By powerful frequency, I don't mean the wavelength of the frequency. I mean the amplitude, the actual power of the frequency. Like in light, we would call this milliwatts of irradiance. It's how strong that signal is. It's even stronger between the ears. So my preference would be that you use a corded headset or a speakerphone, or if you really want to be super hands off and have the phone be free, the iPods that actually go over your head that have the earmuffs and they actually communicate over top of your head, not through your brain. I am not a big fan of putting that kind of low level radiation, through the brain, especially since you're going through the ear and the tympanic membrane and you're going directly through the center of the brain that is interpreting sound waves as electrical frequency. Because tinnitus is on the rise. It's skyrocketing in
Yeah.
iPod earpod users. It's also skyrocketing in folks that use a lot of Bluetooth and wireless communication devices in their ears. They're finding that the level of tinnitus is not coming from damage to the ear. It's coming from damage to the brain that perceives the sound signal and then starts to create um, the perception of a signal that's actually not there. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the ear pods. I would say if you can avoid them, do. If you have a corded headset, better. Speakerphone, better. And if you can use the ones that go over top of the heads, those are probably the best choices.
Is there a cited source that maybe Colleen could post or something? Just because typical
100.
teenager, they're gonna try to say, well, no, it actually this one says this. So you get into that
Mm-hmm.
discussion
Yeah.
of which one's right.
I'm
But
actually happy to if you'll send my team's listening, but if you'll send a little note to the rule bracket into the rule brackets community.
Okay.
I'll make sure that I personally give you this study. You don't want to quote articles or opinion. You will quote a clinical study on
Awesome.
this transmission.
Okay. Thank you for everything to you and your staff. Thank you.
Oh, dude, you guys are awesome, man. Thank you. Nice view of somebody's hammock.
Oh, whoops, sorry. How
Oh,
do I
okay.
turn this around? That's Phoebe. She just got spayed. How do
Oh,
I
hey,
turn
Phoebe.
I'm so sorry. I don't know how to turn this around. Oh,
You
here.
just point your hand to your face. There you
Hi.
go.
I'm so sorry. How are you?
I'm doing amazing.
Okay, so we invested in, we got the whole home water system and the
Awesome.
softener. Yeah, with Echo, and we love it. And we also just did the reverse osmosis and the hydrogen water now under the sink. My
Beautiful.
question, yeah, I'm excited. My question is, in order to get the reverse osmosis water, it comes out of the hydrogen water last, like in the new spigot. So
Right.
the only time I can drink that really clean water is if it's hydrogenated. If that's how you hydrogenated,
Yes. Yes.
hydrogenated, whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there such thing as drinking too much hydrogenated water?
No.
Like, do I ever just want pure like spring water or remineralized reverse osmosis water?
Yes, you want to remineralize it first thing in the morning. So your first big 8 or 10 ounce glass of water in the morning, put a pinch of that Baja Gold sea salt in there.
Okay, we have that
And that
too.
will remineralize the water for you. Remember, 4-stage RO, 4-stage reverse osmosis, pretty much takes everything out of the water. It's good because you don't have the fluorides, the chlorines, the pharmaceuticals, the microplastics, the all of that. But then you have really, really clean water, and that can actually demineralize you. So by adding the minerals to it first thing in the morning, you circumvent that whole process.
Fabulous. Okay, and there's no such thing as I can have hydrogen water all day, every day, and no other.
You can have it all day, every day, as long as first thing in the morning you're adding a little bit of that Baja Gold sea salt to the water and remineralizing it. Absolutely.
Fabulous. Okay, thank you so much. That was my question. Also, I saw you were in Cleveland the other day. That's where I'm from. So
yeah, I threw out the first pitch.
I saw that. That was so cool. How excited!
Yeah, I was so nervous. I was so
you
nervous
ki-
that I was going to shank it.
No, you killed it.
Yeah, I made it to home plate because you're down there in the field and you look up and see that whole stadium full of people and you're like, oh God.
I know. Oh, I bet. What a rush, though.
And then
Very
Stephen
cool.
A. Smith and like 50 Cent and Sarah Blakely, they all just spiked it right into the ground. Mariah Carey's actually went backwards. I was like, oh boy. Yeah, it was a great time. I really enjoyed it. We stayed at the Ritz and then just walked to the stadium over there. So,
Oh, how fun. Yeah, my brother owns a few bars there, Barley House and Town Hall, Rebel. I don't know if you got to check out any of those while you were there or not. No,
I didn't,
well,
unfortunately.
Yeah, we're big eaters, so restaurant family for sure.
All right, great. I'm going to grab a few more questions.
Again.
Great talking to you.
Take care. She's a girl.
Sam?
Hey, Gary.
Hey, Sam. How are you, buddy?
Good. Quick question. So I'm looking to start the water fast here in about a couple weeks. I asked this in the group, but wasn't fully sure. Is it safe to exercise, lift, cold plunge, take my supplements, vitamins during the 3-day water fast?
Yeah. So what I would do is I would continue to take the perfect aminos since they will not break a fast and they'll keep you from getting amino acid deficient, especially if you're going to continue to exercise. So you'll maintain your muscle throughout and you'll actually increase your fatty acid metabolism. Exercise will make you hungry though. Just know, that your blood sugar is going to drop, post exercise. Which is going to increase the intensity of your hunger. So, most people that exercise during fasted periods do report a real intense increase in their hunger. So just be prepared for that if you're going to continue to exercise. My preference would be is that you don't do intense exercise or intense weight training, that you do mild exercise, just basically some self-care. So you don't create a lot of inflammation in the body. And you don't further put stressors on the body. Remember, fasting is stressful for the body. The body is very stressed in that state, and it hormetically responds, the process of hormesis, it hormetically responds by beginning to digest itself from the weakest point forward, which is your senescent cells, your zombie cells, those cells that are living but can no longer perform their function. So the benefits of fasting are stressing the body, applying a hormetic stress, and having the body strengthen in response. It strengthens by consuming the senescent cells. So yes, you can still cold plunge. You can do sauna. You want to make sure that you stay hydrated, that you use Baja Gold sea salt in the morning to remineralize, and you're taking the perfect aminos to make sure you don't get amino acid deficient. Even during a fast, you can take those 2 to 3 servings a day. Kind of does also break up the monotony of fasting, because they're at least gives you something to drink. But do that with mineral water and you'll be fine. I would skip weightlifting and heavy exercise and opt for things like cycling, biking, walking, that are less impact and less stressful on you. But even mild weightlifting is not bad for you during a fast. The only challenge is it makes you very hungry.
Also wanted to update you real quick on my sleep issue that I had last month. You told me to give you an update. I did the cold contrast therapy and the tart cherry juice. And I increased my deep sleep by an hour over the past
No way.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations, man. I love hearing that. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, sleep is our superpower. I just posted my sleep score this morning. If you saw it on Instagram, what did I get, Malia? I got a 98%. Yeah, I mean, sleep is our human superpower. We can't supplement our way out of a poor diet. We can't supplement our way out of chronically poor sleep. So I'm a big believer in supplementation, but if we don't cover the basics, nothing else matters. So congratulations. Awesome. All right. Next is boom boom. Austin. Hey, Austin.
How's it going?
I'm doing great, man.
Good. Yeah, like Ryan said, I own a wellness studio in Honolulu, Hawaii. And yeah, we do red light therapy, sauna, cold plunge, some other stuff. But the question I get a lot is just like a recommended time in the cold plunge. I know you've talked about 3 to 6 minutes, 48 degrees. My question is, how dependent is that on like people's body types? Because I have people that are 50 plus pounds overweight, and then I have people that are probably 5% body fat. So, and I noticed they tolerate the cold a lot differently. So I was wondering if there's any studies you've seen.
Yeah. So obviously, thinner body morphic types can actually do less. Remember, we are trying to create a peripheral vasoconstriction when we get into cold water. We actually don't want a deep vasoconstriction. So we actually don't want deeper arterioles beginning to constrict. That's actually not a good sign. So that's why I say 3 minutes minimum, 6 minutes maximum, 48 to 55 degrees. Anywhere in there is fine. Colder is not better. Longer is not better. But I would use their personal tolerance. Very often, especially frail, small boned women, females, have a tendency to get a lot colder a lot faster, and they stay colder longer. So you can reduce the time down to even a minute. The interesting thing about some of the clinical studies were that it was 11 minutes over the course of an entire week where the studies were actually done. And so that's 2 minutes, 5.5 times a day, or a minute and a half over 7 days, minute and a half, every day over 7 days, because the cumulative benefits of it. The main benefit of cold water therapy happens in the first 15 seconds you're in the water, right? Because cold shock the body. Remember, we're not trying to become cold adaptive. You cold shock the body. What happens? The body peripherally vasoconstricts. It immediately starts to activate brown fat, which is our thermostat, exchanges calories for heat. It then releases cold shock proteins, which aren't going to be released for a few minutes, but it starts the process of releasing cold shock proteins. People may shiver. They may activate the shiver response, which skyrockets the metabolic rate. And then you have, at about 25 or 30 seconds, you start to have a massive dopamine release. And why are you releasing dopamine? Because you actually want to mask the pain, and you want that pleasure sensation because you're so overwhelmed from the pain sensation from the cold water. So a lot of the benefits of cold water immersion happen almost immediately. By continuing to drop, the peripheral body temperature, you do get continued marginal benefits, which really max out at about 3 minutes, and then they die off almost completely at 6 minutes.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
You got it, man. Great talking to you.
You too.
Okay, we got time for one more very quick question. It's 3:56. Hey, man. Talking to you every week. I think you're muted.
There we go. Finally got
There
the
we go.
buttons going, Gary. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, so as I'm looking down the road and I'm looking to, like for smarter goals to set measurable lines, what would you say at 53 is like good blood pressure, heart rate, testosterone level, so that I have those targets to line up for?
So, three things I would say is, number one, I would get, with some kind of device. My preference is the Whoop. That you develop a baseline, right? Because what you want to do is you want to compete against yourself, right? You don't want to compete against, benchmarks for other people. You want to compete against yourself. It's definitely not about perfection. It's really about progression, right? So really, I like getting measurable data, because just like the gentleman before, I suggested that he do contrast therapy, and the juice, and sleep score improved by an hour. That's a measurable effect. He should continue to do that, right? If he can actually improve his deep sleep by an hour. So I would start focusing on 3 areas. Number one, I would get your baseline for all of your basic metrics, your body fat, and I would think about getting body fat down to between 13 and 15%. I would also target your strength gains, and I would do basic strength measurements, like dead hang. How long can you actually dead hang from a bar with your arms fully extended? Try to extend your dead hang. Look at your repetitions under body weight. How many unbroken air squats can you do? How long can you hold a plank? Looking at, your core strength beginning to improve. And then I would also be doing things like looking at my sleep. Sleep directly relates to recovery, and it relates to strain. So I would be, highly focused on my sleep, and I would monitor the things that like help me get improved sleep. Does the contrast therapy help me get better sleep? Stopping eating 2 hours before bedtime and developing some really, really good longevity habits. No food 2 hours before bedtime, limiting or cutting out alcohol. Looking at, adding a mask, eye mask to your sleep routine, surgically removing the light from the room, cooling the room off, and looking how this improves your baseline. So you start with sleep and start measuring your performance exercise wise. And then I would set other little goals like my strength goals, my body fat percentage goals, because as long as you're measuring yourself against yourself, you're gonna be further rewarded by the outcomes.
Okay, awesome. And the Whoop, is that similar to like the Aura ring? Or
it's just a band. It's the Whoop band. I actually just took mine off to charge, but it looks like a wristwatch. It just goes around. You never take it off. You shower with it, sleep with it. You essentially wear it constantly. Whoop whoop.
Nice. Thank you, Gary.
You got it, man. Awesome, guys. Yes, we have somebody very special coming on to say thank you. Oh, Oksana. How are you, Oksana?
I'm really good. I just got off the phone with the delivery company and they're coming this Friday to bring my cold plunge. So I'm so excited.
Yay! Oh, you got the big boy, the Plunge XL from our cold plunge contest.
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted
you're
to say hi and thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And this is, I actually talked about this at the beginning of the Rule Breakers. I'm actually going to start pushing the value back into our Rule Breakers community. Instead of being philanthropic outside of the community, I'm going to be philanthropic inside the community. But it was really inspiring to see you and your whole family, and you had your neighbor over there who was like, has some breathwork experience, kind of talking people through things. And I saw the kids and cousins and nieces. I mean, my whole team just got really excited about that because you guys really embraced it. And now you don't have to use the cattle trough anymore. You got your own Plunge XL.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Oksana. We'll talk very soon. Thank you for being a Rule Breaker. All right, guys, that was amazing. Like I said, stay tuned. Over the next few weeks, we're going to just continue to improve the Rule Breakers. Colleen, who formerly was a Rule Breaker, who's now running the community for me. I know she's in touch with a lot of you guys. You're giving feedback. We're going to maybe extend the times that we do these calls, give you more direct access to some of the experts that are on the podcast, allow you to see more behind the scenes content, create some very specific content for Rule Breakers. So stay tuned, guys. My intention is to build this community into tens of thousands of people and have you guys really be a part of my voice to the, as a message to the masses. And so I'm really going to start over the next month, really delving back into trying to really just exceed your expectation for what you would get for $47. I'm going to increase it to $97. So anybody that's already a Rule Breaker will not be a part of that increase when that happens. But just know that added value is coming, and I'm thinking constantly about ways to improve our community and improve the benefit that you guys get from it. So I will see you guys next time. And remember,